And there's a lot of different things and different ways how to do this very simple thing that maybe for you as a civilian sounds awful, but for me as a combat soldier who was there sounds more or less like drinking a coffee. So anyone who served there knows that using human shields is like drinking a coffee. You do it every day, you do it every week, you get used to these things. So everyone who was there, every soldier or ex-soldier, you come and you want to talk to them, like whether you did this or not, you won't say no. Like, no reason to lie. We all know how it works there. We all know how we behave there. The question is whether we agree to go public with it. And that's more complicated. That's very complicated because, for different reasons. People don't want to be judged by society, because for you, I think this is a very important part because for people outside of the military, things sounds very awful. For us, these things are very daily. Like, that's the story. When you're an occupier, you're an occupier. In general, I would say the fact that the Israeli military is investigating itself is probably one of the most undemocratic principles that I can think of. Look, even here in Israel, not to talk about other places, but even here in Israel, if a policeman violates my rights, I don't go and file a complaint to police. Separation of power. Can't have that one body of the government investigates itself. I go to a special department under the Justice Department that investigates the police. But the army investigates itself. Not only that the IDF investigates itself, people tend not to know this, but actually the prosecutor, the chief prosecutor of the IDF, is also the legal advisor. So it's the same lawyers, who call the rules and give the orders and decide what's legal or what not, are the ones to investigate whether people did legal stuff or not, whether actions carried out by soldiers were legal or not. Now, this is nonsense. Now, instead of really opening the problems of Casled, where soldiers got very permissive rules of engagements, where soldiers were given orders to demolish huge, we're talking about huge areas of infrastructure, houses, fields, for no operational reasons. And I can continue and count more and more the problems in Casled, the red lines that were never crossed before, but in this operation in Gaza are crossed. Instead of really looking into the big orders, into the big strategies, into the big decisions that determines, how this operation is going to be run and the results of it, we end up with what? One soldier who stole a credit card, and two soldiers who used a boy as a human shield. That's the results of hundreds of investigations. The only way I can see it is that these investigations and these trials are in place to try to wash the army as an institution and blame few small rotten apples. Yeah, that's the same story of, instead of really opening the problem, instead of really, putting the generals on the line and checking the big orders and who gave them and who decided that these are okay or not. Who decided actually that in the first ground invasion into Gaza, soldiers were given orders that everything that moves, they can shoot. Because the concept was, we called civilians to leave, and that's why everyone who left, everyone who is a civilian left, and anyone who stayed, that's the sign for us that he's not a civilian. Like, who decided that this is the concept? That's the thing that needs to be investigated. But I want to say something which is, Casled in a way is a bit out of the day-to-day stuff. But I think if you put together the last 10 years of the second Intifada, Okay, and if you put together the last 20 years, a bit less than 20 years, 17 years since the Oslo process started, there's probably one thing you can learn. And that is, if you really want to understand where this place is going towards, what is the next step, don't listen to the leaders. Don't follow the press releases, the big statements, the slogans. Go on the ground, collect the dots, put the puzzle together, and then you understand. That's the only way to really understand where the Middle East is going to. Because throughout all these years, it has always been that the big slogans were very nice, but the bottom line, okay, when you cash the checks, okay, that's what's important. Walk in the streets of Hebron and see what the reality. See settlement expansion around the West Bank. See behavior of the military. See, okay, that's, in a way, that's a story. Look, I think peace as a word lost its meaning in the Middle East. You said you walked in the West Bank. Yeah, you saw the reality of occupation. Everything you saw was done in the name of peace. It's really important to say it and to understand. That's, I know, for people from outside, sometimes it doesn't make sense. It's weird. Okay, but everything you saw today, everything you see in the West Bank today, was done in the name of peace. The separation policies. You walk in Hebron, there is roads that are called in the military sterile roads, meaning these are roads that Palestinians live on, but they cannot walk on. Their front doors are sealed, are welded shut. Okay? That's for the security of the settlers. You have 800 settlers in the middle of 180,000 Palestinians. That was done after the Oslo process started. Checkpoints. Okay, the division of Gaza from the West Bank, the division of the West Bank from East Jerusalem, the division of the West Bank from the Jordan Valley, the division of the north of the West Bank from the south of the West Bank. That was during the peace. Settlements, what, tripled itself, the amount of settlers in the West Bank? Don't catch me on the exact numbers, more or less. That was during the peace. Count how many checkpoints were in the beginning of the 90s in the West Bank and how many checkpoints are today. You know, you can't tell to a person, we're doing peace, and then put him under curfew for 377 days in 3 years.
So what can bring the change? I mean, you need to change the policy, you need to... I'm trying to imagine, I'm listening to you and I'm trying to imagine what can bring the difference.
I don't know if you know, if you come and ask me what is, I don't know what's I cannot draw you the line of how to get there, how to get to reconciliation here. I think we're quite far from this. I think we're, you know, in that sense, I'm very pessimistic. I don't see an end. But at the other end, I'm very optimistic because I think now we understand more the problems. And I think one of the main problems is that we've connected the end of the occupation to the end of the conflict.